Yeah, we'll look into it, have Jesse go out and take a look at it, it's just something that came to our attention, so.
So number 3, section of the oval often wet and some sort of construction cloth needs to be put down. Basically, we'll have to build a little bit, 6 or 8 inches of berm up to go above the wet areas. There is an old road bed in there that we can utilize, so we're not going to have to put too much stuff in it. And then it goes into a trail that goes around, I'm not quite sure what the pond is there, whether it's Dry Creek Pond, but that part of it is just basically just mow it. There's enough compaction and stuff on it to support bike riding, walking, that kind of stuff. Let's get to this one, which is the Crutchfield Road. The trail comes around the pond there in the black, and the yellow up to the right of it is an area that is a little bit of a security issue, because the trail we originally thought could go down would go down Crutchfield, but there's a gate there on the road, and then there's a gate that goes into or right by the storage area, and I believe that's the port storage area. We thought as a security procedure it would be better to go straight across the roads with ballards or bollards in there, instead of trying to take fences out and having possible access with cars and stuff through there. So ballards would probably be a much preferred way. The yellow part through there would be all new construction. There's no road bed underneath. We'd have to do quite a bit of dirt work in there. We try to make this ADA for gravel, not pavement, but for gravel, so that it will have a certain slope to it and not exceed any kind of slope for wheelchair accessibility and that kind of stuff.
So are there wetlands here identified that we're going to have to deal with if you do improvements?
I don't know if they're classified as wetlands. They are wet during the winter, but nice and dry during the summer. And like I said, it's an old road bed in there anyway. Should be usable.
I think checking the county map to see if they're identified as wetlands before improvements are. Well, the county though is the one that identifies, that has the wetlands map.
It's in the city limits.
Yeah.
So
Even so though,
it's their wetland ordinances we have to go.
Yeah.
And they're going through a rather substantial revisions to those right now in accordance with the Department of College. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Maybe you could talk to him, take a look with him and see if there's gonna be issues. And that is our property then? Right there?
Yes.
And what kind of permits will have to be issued to be able to do this?
Maybe clearing and grading the city, because those are pretty straightforward. I think it's over 100 cubic yards of material, excavation replacement. Other than that, I can't think of anything else. That clearing and grading permit likely would be opening you up to maybe wetland investigation.
And so, who would be getting the permits then?
The property owner, typically.
So, do we give them authorization though to get the permits, and we, like we do with the tenant?
Well, a lot of times, like, we would submit for this.
Okay.
Like, just to prepare the documentation and send it to the city. Depends on the type of permit. Like, if it's a electrical permit, then the contractor always has to get the electrical permit. But most of these other permits, the court would
So, installing fencing doesn't require any, if it's over a certain height, doesn't require a permit?
Okay, I don't think so. It might, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Okay.
Then we follow along, I believe, there's a name for the road there, but it's a dirt road that is traveled by security right now, up until number 7, where it turns into potholes, and basically it just needs to be mowed to that point. We go on to number 8, You go around, it turns into very rough area. It's gonna need some substantial work there, probably, maybe a cat to go in and make a road. There's a bit of a road there, but, there's gonna be a lot of work that needs to be done to that area. Right now, it just basically goes through blackberries, so we really can't tell what's under there unless we get in and start chopping blackberries back.
So this, gravel work and the construction work, who's gonna pay for that?
A lot of that is done by volunteer labor and equipment. Most of it was on the south side, we had done by all our volunteers. We brought in equipment, we volunteered it, we compacted it, we hauled in gravel, wherever we can beg, borrow, get what we can for stuff, that's what we try to do with it.
Do we, from a risk mitigation standpoint, liability standpoint, do we need any kind of use agreement with them as a group, volunteers?
Use agreement anytime within the property
Mhm.
for the tree.
Do you have any input there, Simon?
Not at this point.
Okay.
No, it's a fair question. Definitely need to think that through.
Just, if it's on our property and if it's, volunteers and you have large industrial equipment being used, we should think through what, to protect the port from any liability.
The Trail Coalition has, forms that we've gone, with the city before, and, they fill out the forms. We, register the volunteers that are in there helping, register the equipment that's in there helping. I'm sure there's a way that, if we get with them, that they can enlighten us on what is needed for that also.
Is the Trail Coalition a 501c3 or is it an ad hoc organization?
I do not know.
Okay.
I believe they are 501c3, but I think they've applied for grants before, matching grants.
They have, yes.
Okay, so you have to basically be a 501c3 to receive grant funding, so my assumption is that they would be, typically you have to, so.
Okay.
So that type of organization, we can provide a use agreement
Right.
with, and then they can identify the volunteers, so I'm sure there's a way we can make it work.
Okay, good. Then from 8 on through, we will keep this closer to the vegetation, as it helps to keep away from the fencing itself. The trail goes right along the side of the tree line there, and then it comes to number 10, which is cross-country trail. It's gonna have to be a little bit of a berm made there. It's a little bit wet through there, so there again, we're gonna have to build up 6-8 inches so that we're above where the water would sit during the winter time. And then on to the blacktop area of the new roads that are in there, and all the way down to the east end of the airport. And then there's gonna be some trails made, which are just basically following old trails that are there, and more gravel hauled in. The whole east end of the airport, basically has a wide shoulder on it as it is now. We might wanna do a little bit more widening on that shoulder. Just depends on how people feel for a safety issue for that. That's basically it to complete the loop on it. What I would like to do is motion that the port commit to this project,
What are we committing?
to the completion of this project through
No, but-
funding and,
So
there
but
may
there's
be
no-
some grants we can get, we can try to keep this to a minimum.
Right, so, but I would still want to know just what that dollar is, or what I wanna say is, what is the ask? And, another thing that I'm wondering is, if the trail is ADA compliant, have you gone after any ADA funding? Because I know that they have gotten quite a bit for ODT. So
We-
that would be something that, we could consider providing the match for.
We have not yet gone that.
Yeah.
Basically, this is enough of a project that we need to kinda get permission from the port to start on it, because if we take it one section at a time and then all of a sudden we're stopped, like, can't do that anymore, then.
Just a minute. Excuse me, I can't hear with 2 ears.
Can't hear with 2 ears?
Yeah, I mean, I can't hear two conversations, so.
Go ahead.
So we're just asking that you commit to doing this, because if we get started on it and then get stopped, we've wasted a section of it, we can't complete it.
So Glenn, I think it's fabulous that you're doing this.
Yes.
I think we all absolutely support it. Has our staff had an opportunity to investigate what the role our port staff will have in this as far as signing off permits and evaluating the path to ensure that there aren't wetlands issues, or, you know, how much time have you guys been able to spend evaluating this proposal?
Just a preliminary amount, but first wanted to see what the general tenor of the commission was on supporting something like this, and what level of support that is. Is it basically supporting them to, do what, they can accomplish through a volunteer effort? Is the court looking at doing anything more than that? Certainly as the owner of the property, there will be some role for us in permitting review and monitoring it, that as any work done on our property, that it meets a standard that's acceptable to us. So there's always that role that the court will have, and we first wanted to see what where the, you know, commission is on it. I think it makes it a more attractive for our airport and a community benefit to have a trail, you know, around the area.
Have you been able to talk to tenants, like say M&R, that are there, and that there'd be, you know, more public activity going along their, well, it looks like the entrance of their leased property, is that right?
They actually, that walkway is behind the M&R lease area, so it's going down the terminal road, and M&R's here, so they would be actually heading behind.
On the other side of the street?
Yeah, well, it's on the old airport road, so their M&R's access is all in here.
But then don't they access it too on the, right where the arrow is?
This is an occasional, not often, but M&R knows that we do have a trail coalition coming in here. So they are aware.
There will be though, has anybody talked to M&R then about
have.
this, and?
We already have walkers out there, and so I've made M&R very aware of, making sure that their trucks and that, they know that there's a lot of pedestrian activity, as well as incoming car activity once we get a working terminal in there.
Well, I'm very much in favor of trails, and I'd love to see this loop done, but, you know, when I say yes, I don't know what I'm saying yes to. So, you know, estimates on something, and when you say it's kind of wet, is it kind of wet right now, or is it only kind of wet in the winter time? Those are two very different times of the year. And, so, you know, I would hate to say yes and then we get partway through it and see that, wow, this is gonna be a huge capital expense that we really hadn't anticipated. So I'm having a little difficulty with the unknown.
The concept, as I understand it, is that the Trails Group is looking to pretty much seek funding and volunteer work from other sources than the port in order to complete this on port property.
That is
So the
correct.
ask is not dollars from the port, there will be port involvement because it's on our property, so it'd be more likely staff time. But at this point, they weren't asking for a dollar amount from the port, just to be able to
I would
have
be
access
very much
to
in
it.
favor of supporting them in this process, and then coming back to us if that support needed to go beyond just time from our staff, or if it enters into the dollar figures, that they come back and let us know kind of what they're looking at financially for our commitment. But I'm willing to support them up to that point.
Well, obviously Chris's time or our staff time is dollars, is, you know, that.
Yeah, but I'm willing to support that.
Yeah, So
The in-kind support for
Yes,
the
in-kind
project.
support.
Sure. I would love to have Chris or someone that has a fairly good grasp on what, you know, doing this trail and putting this in, if it's gravel, you know, is that going to be feasible with the grant prospects that are out there? And just to have some evaluation from your perspective on that.
I think you really mentioned the biggest risk or hurdle in this project would be the potential wetland encounter. We haven't had all of it investigated. We've had significant amount of investigation on the, you know, I know of wetlands back in here. These are detailed, we have buffers in place and mitigation plans that are already there. And I know it is quite wet here just from experience. I almost got stuck in a Ford pickup there shortly after I was hired. It would have been embarrassing. But back here, I haven't really investigated what that would look like or had a biologist in there who, you know, say yay or nay. But that, you know, you can, I mean, I've seen enough wetlands to have a little bit of an idea if there's, you know, the type of vegetation that's there or the haunching of the grass, that kind of is a telltale sign it could be wetlands. So, I probably should walk the site. Get
Another
base
question,
understanding.
another question I had is the trail going to, is that part of the trail all going to be outside the secure area of the airport?
Yes.
Outside the security fence
Yes.
that's there now? Okay.
The south side of the trail was built that way, so it's outside.
Okay.
And that's, I think, a FAA requirement too, it can't be inside of it.
Okay.
And so if we ever wanted to expand the footprint, like we talked about an emergency operations center today, and I know the emergency operations center was, on the south, what is that, west side of the runway. That's where they were proposing it, but it would have been inside the fence, the security area fence. And so, I guess we'd have to move that if we wanted to incorporate that so that they had direct access to the runway. We need to move that, trail line.
Are you talking about that it would require moving the fence as well? Is that what you're saying?
If they wanna be inside the fence area.
Well, if the EOC wanted to be inside the fenced area, in the secure area, then, and I know it was along somewhere along there on the southwest side of the main runway.
We
is where they
have-
were proposing it.
We have this area here designated as, critical area if FEMA needs to come in. So
Well, this
we-
was with Bill Bryant, further to the, yeah.
somewhere around in
To
here.
locate a permanent EOC center for the
EOC.
county.
Yeah,
Huh.
We haven't started those
Yeah.
discussions yet,
right.
so I think, you know,
I think there's a file on it. They had all sorts of plans.
right, but we would need to restart off and see if the same plans make sense, or if there's different thoughts about it. And I think at that time, even if a portion of the trail is impacted by that, we don't know which one's gonna come about first, and we make adjustments accordingly.
Well, the ELC could be in a totally fenced area too, and then if they needed access to the runway, then gates could be open, and that'd be during an emergency, and the trail wouldn't have to be used during that time, so I think there's some easy solutions to that.
So we can try to look at those plans to see if we look at
I
the
would
existing
say-
plans, if there's any current conflicts.
I would say generally, I would think the court supports your efforts, Glenn, and again, I thank you and commend you for the Trails Coalition working on this. But I'd like to see our staff do a little bit more analysis to see it, you know, what's the viability and before we move forward. What are the likely expenses? What's the viability? Is there a different, you know, section that should be located somewhere else? It'd be cheaper for you or easier to do it? and, get that input before we move forward.
Sure.
I don't wanna hold you up though, either on any grants or anything.
We haven't started applying for any grants yet. We wanted to make sure that we had something
Yeah.
viable before we went and did that.
Right.
Okay, good, so that, you kind of got what you need, at least short-term wise, until we can figure out
Yes.
some of the details?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, at a high level, we're supportive.
Thank you.
You know, should it be exactly right there, not sure, you know, and if it, would it be, really onerous from a cost standpoint, and, you know, we need to do a little bit more by, if we made a motion and said we support it, does that mean we're committed, and regardless of what it costs, that we have to, execute? I wanna make sure that's not the situation.
Right.
Okay.
So,
And again, too, I'm in favor of it, I just need to know more detail.
okay.
So I think the more detail will come from our staff's review
Yeah.
of
Okay.
it, walking it, estimating what court staff time or ink time may be in contributing to this project, so that commissioners have an idea of this X amount of in-time, staff time for
Okay,
the project.
very good. I'm available if anybody needs to go walking through there, we can show them the path. So,
Okay, great, great.
How long is that path?
it's just under 5 miles for the whole complete loop. That path, I don't have an exact amount on,
Couple
a
miles?
couple miles.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
Alright, so moving on, Small Community Air Service Development Program Grant.